What if I told you that Weapons was so coveted by Hollywood that Jordan Peele fired his management team when they failed to secure this movie for his production company? And what if I told you I have no idea why Jordan Peele would do such a thing, because this is probably one of the most overrated movies of the year. Weapons is the second horror film from director Zach Cregger, who made his debut a few years ago with Barbarian. Now, Barbarian was something else in the best way possible. A wild ride that keeps defeating your expectations at every turn. So as is everyone else, I was excited to see where this director would go next, and he decided to make Weapons, a horror film where a group of children, all from the same class, leave their house at 2:17 a.m. to never return. All but one. The film takes a cue out of Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, a film that I love, and like that movie, we go back and forth between a bunch of different characters' perspectives before jumping right back into another. Earlier on, I talked about how much of a wild ride Barbarian is, and while Barbarian was definitely a wild roller coaster of a movie, this film right here fails because of its desperation to capture the exact same feeling that movie did. Instead of telling a compelling story, Zach Cregger seems to have sat down and asked himself, how can I somehow top the absurdity of Barbarian? And instead of feeling like a natural progression of the story, the surprises feel like director Zach Cregger throwing whatever he can on the screen just to shock you. Prior to watching this movie, I was excited to see how this film would explore the impact of this tragic event on the entire cast of characters. That's what the trailer seemed to suggest, with director Zach Cregger saying that each character in the film represents a different stage of grief that he experienced when he recently lost a dear friend of his. But because of the movie's structure, we barely scratch the surface of the impact of this event. The film is structured in chapters, each focusing on an entirely different character, and because of that, every time you're settling into one, the movie yanks you away and throws you into another perspective in a way that even PTA's Magnolia knew would be quite disorienting for the viewers. It's not like you're spending 5 minutes with one character and then another 5 minutes with another. It's more like you're spending 15 minutes with Josh Brolin's character to the point where you forget any of the other characters even exist. It would be one thing if Cregger was making great use of each of those 15 minutes, but there's a lot of dead space within the movie. Even after spending 15 minutes focusing solely on Julia Garner's character, you feel like you barely get to know her. The screenplay intends to focus on the ripple effect caused by the disappearing children, but if we take for example Alden Ehrenreich's character, the internal struggles that the character faces are only loosely related to the disappearance of the kids. Forget all the characters being united by a common thread, this might as well be an anthology film. When you're watching the first half, you're really locked into this mystery about what happened to the missing kids, and by the time we get into the back half, it feels like an afterthought. For a movie like Weapons, which leans on mystery as much as horror, the answer to the mystery can make or break this film. Director J.J. Abrams being a great example of why asking compelling questions doesn't make you an excellent filmmaker if you can't deliver on an equally compelling answer. Without spitefully spoiling this movie for anyone, let's just say that the answer here is incredibly underwhelming. On top of that, it's incredibly easy to forecast, and if you don't forecast it, it's likely because you're expecting this movie to be way smarter than it actually is. Before going into the movie, I read numerous theories about what internet people think could happen, and this really is one of those movies where all the speculation is genuinely more compelling than what we get in the final film. Now, I have a lot of issues with Zach Cregger the writer, but Zach Cregger the director is a whole different story. For all my complaints about the screenplay of Weapons, this movie is a immaculately directed. Cregger is a patient filmmaker, and he wields that patience as a tool, allowing us to sit with bone-chilling moments to terrifying effect. I'm a big soundtrack guy. If you look at my Spotify Wrapped for last year, it's all Ludwig Göransson. So when I go into a horror, or any movie for that matter, I'm very interested in the soundscape of the film. And for every solid piece of music and weapons, I was even more impressed in Zach Cregger's restraint in knowing when not to use any score. As a director, Cregger knows when to withhold sound so that you can hear the heavy breathing of everyone beside you in the theater. Or in my case, the sound of the 14-year-old doing the Naruto run at the front of the cinema. It helps that Cregger is the co-composer on top of being the director, because you can just tell he knew exactly what each scene needed in terms of score. It's pretty hard for any horror movie to get a rise out of me, but there were some moments here where I genuinely got chills. On top of that, it's really hard to fault the performances here. Across the board, everyone's doing the absolute best they can with the material they've been given. Julia Garner brings vulnerability and pathos to a flawed but sympathetic character, and this is a pretty vulnerable turn for Josh Brolin, who I usually associate with playing pretty tough guys. But I gotta give a special shout out to Alden Ehrenreich. I've been rooting for this guy since Hell Caesar. I was one of the few people who thought he would be great solo, and for the record, I was very correct. It is just always great to see him pop up, and he does a great job here, playing a bit of an homage to John C. Reilly's cop character in Magnolia. One can only wish that these talented group of actors were given rich characters to sink their teeth into. Instead, we only get a window shopper view of these characters. How am I meant to care when something tragic happens to any of these people when I barely know any of them? And that is an impressive thing to do, considering this movie spends about 20 minutes individually giving each character their own chapter and storyline. Yes, we spend a lot of time with these characters' company, but not a lot of time getting under their skin. We're just thrown from one shock moment to the other before the movie delivers an admittedly thrilling, but once again unearned ending. This movie's not gonna go on anyone's worst of the year list, but for me, it'll go down as one of the most disappointing. If this movie taught me anything, it's that maybe Zach Cregger should consider opening up a writer's room for his next film, because he is a far better director than he is a writer. And for that, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for weekly TV and movie reviews. And if you've had the chance to watch Weapons, jump in the comments and let us know what you thought about it. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.